Hello, I'm Nadia, and today I have a heartwarming true story about Wojtek the bear. It's a really touching example of the close bond that can develop between a wild animal and humans, even under extremely difficult conditions. This story is set in World War II, and it begins soon after the evacuation of Polish soldiers and civilians out of the Soviet Union to safety in Iran in 1942. They were fleeing from the horrific conditions in Stalin's penal camps in Siberia, where most of them had lost friends and close family members, parents, brothers, sisters. Now, a short time after their arrival in April, a group of these Polish evacuees were travelling by train, and they met an Iranian boy at a railway station. He'd found a tiny bear cub, which he rescued after its mother had been shot by hunters. Among the group of evacuees was 18-year-old Irena. She was the grandniece of a very high-ranking Polish general. She adored the little bear and persuaded one of the soldiers to buy him from the boy. Irena took the bear back to a civilian refugee camp where she was staying in Tehran. I'm sure she didn't realise just how much attention her adopted baby really needed. Well, Irena's baby bear cub turned out to be quite a handful, and after a few months of caring for him, she realised that she wasn't going to be able to look after him, and especially not when he got bigger. So she donated him to the army, and he joined the 22nd Artillery Supply Company. This supply company was responsible for distributing ammunition, food and fuel to soldiers when they fought in combat. The cute little orphaned bear cub quickly became the centre of attention. Some of the army recruits were only 14 years old because so many of the evacuees were orphans. And I'm sure that having this bear cub gave them an important psychological support to help them as they recovered from the trauma they had experienced in Siberia. There was no shortage of volunteers to play with this bear. But I think that the soldiers at the camp must have had to justify to the British authorities keeping a bear at their camp, because the authorities did sign off an approval to give daily rations to feed this bear. And I wonder if they argued that they needed him because when he grew up, he would be able to guard their precious ammunition, fuel and food supplies that they stored at their camp. And indeed, there are several stories that when he was fully grown, he scared the life out of a couple of intruders who had crept into their camp. The bear cub grew up living among the soldiers, copying their behaviours. He slept with them in their tents at night. He shared their showers and latrine. He drank coffee and beer with them. He ate their food and even ate their cigarettes. He responded to his name and learned some Polish commands. The men trained him to walk upright, to march and salute. But Wojtek was a bit of a rascal, and he often raided the kitchen. When he got into trouble for misbehaving, he learned to cover his eyes with his paws and whimper. This invariably made the person yelling at him take pity on the poor bear and made a fuss of him instead. Wojtek loved his playtime. There were a couple of dogs at the camp that he liked to chase. And he also loved play wrestling with the men. They had to be careful that he didn't shred their clothing with his long nails. But Wojtek was never aggressive towards the men. He lived in a very stimulating environment with the army. In early 1944, the Polish army was transferred from Egypt to Italy, where they would face their defining battle at Monte Cino. This photo shows Wojtek boarding the Polish naval ship Batory. There's a great story about this journey. It says that when the Poles initially boarded the ship with Wojtek, the British officials wouldn't allow him to sail, saying, "Sorry, no animals." So the Poles went back and enlisted Wojtek as a private in the army. When they returned to the ship, his papers were checked and he was allowed on board. As much as I love that story, I've read that it isn't true. There are no records showing that Wojtek had a serial number or held a rank in the army. Monte Cino was an extremely hard-fought battle in which the combined Allied armies suffered 55,000 casualties. It was the job of Wojtek's artillery supply company to transport 17,000 tons of ammunition, over 1,000 tons of fuel, and 1,000 tons of food to the troops. Wojtek famously assisted in this task by carrying heavy boxes of shells weighing 100 pounds, loading the trucks alongside the Polish soldiers. On the right, you can see the 25-pound shells that were used by the artillery crews. There are photos online allegedly showing Wojtek in a dugout at the battle, but they're fake and were photoshopped. Wojtek was never at the front line, but stayed behind at the supply base, about 18 miles from Cino. After this battle, Wojtek was formally incorporated into the 22nd Company's badges. They depicted him carrying a 25-pound shell, but in fact it was the ammunition boxes loaded with shells that he carried. Another popular story is that Wojtek was promoted to the rank of corporal, but as you already know, there aren't any records to support this. After the war ended, the Polish army was shipped from Italy to Britain, where they awaited demobilisation. Wojtek's supply company stayed at an airfield in Berwickshire, Scotland, which is where this photo was taken. Gradually, the men left the army and settled overseas in America, Canada, Argentina, and South Africa. Some stayed in Britain, but very few of these men returned to Poland, which was now under communist rule. With the army no longer able to look after Wojtek, he went to Edinburgh Zoo in 1947. He was well cared for there. The attendants apparently even wore Polish uniforms to help him feel at home. Although his exciting life as a soldier bear was over, he still received lots of attention. Some of the Poles from his unit remained in Scotland, and when they visited him, they threw him cigarettes and spoke to him in Polish. He also had attention from the media, especially journalists, and he made several appearances on a BBC television programme for children called Blue Peter. Wojtek lived the rest of his life at the zoo. He passed away in 1963, aged 21, which is a typical lifespan for his species. If you ever visit Scotland, you can see this statue of Wojtek in Edinburgh. And of course there are lots more statues of him all over Poland. I hope you enjoyed hearing Wojtek's story. Please give me a like below and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.